Welcome to PENSARE Basketball. Today we're going to talk about the Toronto Raptors having not a shooting problem, but rather a finishing problem and perhaps also a screening problem. Uh, After our live yesterday, I ventured into Twitter Spaces and we had a fantastic discussion about what exactly the Toronto Raptors need at the next deadline. And everyone seemed to be against the idea of bringing in a non-shooter or at least somebody who doesn't positively impact three-point shooting. And I think that the conversation around three-point shooting can be far too simplified. It can just come down to, well, this guy shoots threes, so he's good for three-point shooting. This guy shoots well, so he's good for three-point shooting. But what about players who don't shoot well from three, but are very good for three-point shooting? I'll give you an example of this, and I guess this is going to be a lot about Jakob Poeltl, and I think how much Jakob Poeltl is misunderstood. But take a look at the Toronto Raptors three-point attempt leaders and their three-point percentage right next to it. Emmanuel quickly shoots about 37% from three. He is clearly the leader. Brandon Ingram shoots 36% from three. He is the second leader. Jamal Shed shoots 33% from three. Sandro shoots almost 37% from three. Those are your four leaders. After that, okay, we get into some dangerous territory where you have guys like Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, who are not respected or very good three-point shooters. And you have guys like Grady and Ochai Jacoby, who probably should be good three-point shooters, who probably should have like some volume as three-point shooters, who should have some success as three-point shooters. And among those guys, it's only Jacoby who's actually managed to hit something close to league average, which is 35%. Ochai shooting 18% ain't helping. You have Jameson Battle, who is a major defensive liability, who doesn't play a lot, but he is your best three-point shooter by percentages, and he is guarded heavily and still manages to shoot 46% from three. Then you have Colin Murray-Boyles, who on very limited volume relative to minutes played has managed to shoot 35% from three. So I guess that's encouraging overall. But I think far too many people are, again, way too focused on this guy shoots threes, so he's good for threes. Now, this is a stat that has been present nowhere. And I know it's present nowhere because I've never seen it anywhere and I dug it up myself. The Toronto Raptors on the season from the three-point range are 28th in the league. Success, congratulations. A couple of hot shooting games, and the Raptors have now moved from 30th to 28th, and that is largely because Emmanuel quickly has started hitting his threes again, and Grady Dick has started hitting some more threes. These guys were a little bit colder before. But hey, man, 28th in the NBA is not good. But what about when the guy on your team who never takes threes actually plays above 19 minutes a game? Well, the Toronto Raptors are exactly middle of the pack, which I think is perfectly okay, given the team's propensity to run in transition, take a lot of mid-range shots, have one of the best mid-range scorers in the league, at least in theory, in Brandon Ingram, have some pretty damn good finishers like Jakob Poeltl and Scotty Barnes in the paint. Ingram himself is actually not a bad finisher in the paint. When you combine all of that, add in the defense, you can certainly understand why the Raptors are so much better when Jakob Poeltl plays. And it's interesting to say that the guy who doesn't take threes, the guy who is often maligned as the reason the Raptors can't hit threes, the guy whose replacement definitively has to be Miles Turner because that guy hits threes, it's that guy who, with him playing 19 plus minutes, the Raptors are middle of the pack. But how about when he doesn't play 19 plus minutes? They are dead last. The Toronto Raptors, when Jakob Poeltl does not play 19 plus minutes, which includes games, by the way, the 31 games in which he's played 0 minutes, or 30 games where he's played 0 minutes, and the one game where he played 6 minutes, all those combined, the Raptors have shot 335 for 1,019, which is good for 32.8%. I checked in my calculator. So this is bad. This is really, really bad. And again, not something that most people would think about when it comes to Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl impacts three-point shooting. How can a guy who doesn't shoot threes impact three-point shooting? Well, ironically, the Toronto Raptors have been better offensively, minorly, with Jakob Poeltl on the court. They have a 115.6 offensive rating, and it's really defensively that they've been better with him off the court, and that's largely because he's been very compromised. And it's worth noting that his playing well very much impacts winning and losing. You know, there's a couple of players on this team, Jakob Poeltl, Scotty Barnes. There's a consistent trend where If they play well, you probably win. If they don't play well, you probably lose. That sort of situation, right? ESPN needs IKD. I feel honored. This live feels like an extension of the conversation from last night. This live is absolutely born of the discussion that we had on Twitter Spaces yesterday. So I wanted to actually extend this into a more visual representation and statistical representation of what I was saying yesterday. Because in that Twitter space, I asked a very interesting question, which is how much better would this Toronto Raptors team be if you replaced one really good three-point shooter, which is Emmanuel Quickley, with another type of three-point shooter, which is Tyrese Halliburton? And everyone seemed to agree, and I didn't hear any pushback, that the Raptors would be a much better three-point shooting team. But why? Is it because Tyrese Halliburton is Steph Curry? No, not really. I mean, he has about as much in common with Steph Curry as Emmanuel Quickley does. Is it because Tyrese Halliburton has some sort of amazing release that can be pulled off against tight defenses? No, he has the same problem that Emmanuel Quickley does. The difference is Tyrese Halliburton makes decisions faster than Emmanuel Quickley. He pushes pace faster. He allows the ball to breathe better. And that's why I say the Raptors don't have a shooting problem. They have a finishing problem, but most importantly, they have a processing problem, which is weird because the Raptors don't have a lot of dumb players. Now, how does Jakob Poeltl help with this? Well, I think in order to understand how Jakob Poeltl helps, you have to understand where good three-point shots actually come from. They come in transition. How do you get in transition? You finish defensive plays without the other team scoring. I think that's a great thing. Scotty will often push the pace even on makes, even off of a made free throw. Sometimes the Raptors will get something adjacent to a transition bucket. But I think that's maybe the worst type of transition offense because sometimes you end up forcing the issue when you don't have numbers or you're over reliant on the other team basically not getting back in transition and overextending yourself. The best situation is you get a stop at the rim, the other player kind of falls out of bounds, and now you have a 5-on-4 going the other way. That's the best place to find threes. Where else could you find threes? And that's, by the way, provided that you have somebody who can push down the middle and actually have some sort of sinking effect on the court, like a Giannis. Like someone like Giannis Antetokounmpo creates very open threes because he sucks defenses into the middle. Jakob Poeltl is not Giannis Antetokounmpo, but if Jakob Poeltl catches the ball at about 14 feet and is going with a head of steam down the rim, it's the same thing. It's just as unstoppable. It's just as likely to result in 2 points for the other team. And so the defense has to react. If Colin Murray Boyles or Emmanuel Quickley catch the ball in that situation, if Jacoby Walter catches the ball in that situation, if Jonathan Mobo catches the ball in that situation, Grady Dick catches the ball in that situation, it's not the same overreaction from the defense, which doesn't open up the corners as much. So the most important thing here is what about the other way that you can get really clean, beautiful looks, offensive rebounds? When you see this play right here, which is not really a play, but more of a screen grab, you see three players trying to box out Jakob Poeltl, none of them succeeding. Shout out to the Milwaukee Bucks. Brook Lopez is out in the paint. Look at Pascal Siakam and Emmanuel Quickley and how wide open they are. Because Jakob is not just a good offensive rebounder, many players are good offensive rebounders. He's also an intelligent offensive rebounder, which is to say that once he secures the ball, he is able to get it in the right place that is most advantageous for the offense and most disadvantageous for the defense. Which means in this situation, unlike maybe a stupid player who would just whip it out to the middle or try to shuffle it off to Dennis Schroeder, Jakob Poeltl is going to tip this pass exactly to where it belongs, which is probably above the break to Scotty, or where he, could do it, which is to the corner to Emmanuel Quickley. So again, this is one of the ways that having a Jakob Poeltl on the court really helps. What about another way that it helps? He is an above the rim finisher. The paint finishing component of three-point shooting is very important. The Raptors don't have a big. They don't have a 7-footer who can finish in the paint with consistency. We saw it last night with Colin Murray Boyles. We've seen it, frankly, all season with Colin Murray Boyles. We've seen it for the last 2.5 seasons with RJ Barrett. Yes, these are guys who can often get 2 feet in the paint, but neither one of them are above the rim finishers. Above the rim finishers, like a Derek Lively, a Daniel Gafford, put so much pressure on the opposing defense to react to them when they go to the paint. So when a Jakob Poeltl, look at the defense right now and look at how open OG Anunoby is on this Jakob Poeltl dunk. Now, if Jakob Poeltl, for whatever reason, decides forget the dunk. I'll just give it to OG because we need 3 instead of 2 right now because we're behind or something. The Raptors are up by 5 there. He can easily whip this pass to OG, and OG is never going to be more open in his life because Jakob Poeltl is the type of offensive finisher around the paint. Even if he's not a pogo stick, he's not Wemby, he's not Derek Lively, he's not Daniel Gafford. Cool. He's still the type of guy that most defenses cannot stop one-on-one in the paint. That is going to cause gap help. That's going to cause guys leaving shooters open in the corners. And that is what you desperately need. And that is why a lot of people feel like RJ Barrett is so instrumental to the offense. What the difference is between RJ and Jakob Poeltl is frankly, Jakob Poeltl is so much more dangerous as a finisher in the paint. Even if RJ's finishes maybe look better to you, it doesn't matter. The defense reacts more to Jakob Poeltl getting open in the paint. The third way that Jakob Poeltl is able to completely change your three-point shooting outcomes is he is a very intuitive roller and connector. And off of these situations, he is either able to get right to the paint or he's able to draw a double and then finish it, finish that play out by connecting the pass to the player who needs to get the ball. So in this situation, you have Scotty spaced out on one side, Pascal spaced out on the other side, Dennis Schroeder running pick and roll with Jakob Poeltl, and RJ Barrett presumably cutting around the corner so Scotty can get above the break. Again, sometimes it's good to look at freeze frames, look at what you think should happen over the next 2 seconds to build your own basketball IQ, and then maybe play the play out and see what actually happened and how maybe what you thought was wrong or maybe what you thought was right and the players just did it wrong. In this situation, the right thing to do is for RJ to probably, and again, RJ cutting through the paint probably just gets in Jakob's way, so you might actually just spread this out. But unfortunately, because of Scotty, Pascal, and RJ not having enough off-ball gravity, you're not able to isolate the two-man game well enough between Dennis Schroeder and Jakob Poeltl because neither of these players are the type of pull-up threats that an Emmanuel Quickley is. So again, this play should, in theory, work better with Emmanuel Quickley because Quickley is at least the threat that stretches the defense up, right? So here, Jakob Poeltl rolls to the basket. If Jakob Poeltl rolls to the basket, what opens up is probably a corner 3 for Pascal as Garrett Temple and Donovan Mitchell have to overreact to help because right here, Larry Nance is behind the play. If Dennis Schroeder plays this correctly, Jakob Poeltl is either getting a wide open dunk or he is getting a pass, which results in probably a pass right to RJ Barrett or a pass left to Pascal Siakam. Again, these are not great options, but if you replace one of RJ, Pascal with Jamison Battle or Emmanuel Quickley, suddenly the outcome changes dramatically. And those players are now getting way more open than they ever did before. Consider, last night how open Desmond Bane got against the Toronto Raptors. This is another way that Jakob Poeltl can thoroughly impact three-point shooting. He is a real, legitimate cross-match mismatch. Cross matches sometimes happen in transition, but can sometimes happen in sometimes can happen within the offense in the half court, where you have a player who is simply too big or way too small for another player. The Raptors have a ton of 6'6" to 6'7" guys. The problem with 6'6", 6'7", 6'8" guys is there aren't a lot of really bad matchups for those guys. Yeah, of course, if you end up with Brandon Ingram, going up against I don't know, a point guard who's 5'11", but leagues have bigger guards today. A lot of point guards now are 6'4", 6'3", 6'5". Okay, so now when you go up against a team that's a little bit larger, where's the mismatch? Is Brandon Ingram on a center a thorough mismatch? Not really, because he's not twitchy enough to get past him, so it's going to be a grind out. Is Scotty Barnes on a center a mega mismatch? Unless that center is Luka Garza and he's really slow. If it's I don't know, Jared Allen or Victor Wembanyama, it's not really a mismatch. So you don't have these players who put the other team off balance. And what I mean by that is the player who is best for three-point shooting typically is the player who cannot be guarded by 70% of the other team. Jakob Poeltl cannot be guarded by Peyton Pritchard. So you put them in the action and you make sure that Peyton Pritchard has to guard Jakob Poeltl. I'll also say, I don't think Jakob Poeltl can be guarded by Sam Hauser. I think it would be tough for someone who's 6'3" like Derek White, although I think he'd have a better chance of just stripping down, of guarding Jakob Poeltl. And so when you have this, and it's the same thing with a super twitchy small guard, like Trey Young in his prime cannot be guarded by a slow-footed big or even a bigger forward. You're gonna get cooked off the dribble. John Morant in his prime, that's a mismatch. 80, I'd say 75% of the other team is not a good mismatch, is not a good matchup for John Morant. So the pick and roll that you go to is largely to get that mismatch on you. Once you get the mismatch on you, now you force help, now you get threes. It's not hot potato around the rim and, one guy gets the ball and throws it to the other guy and throws it to the other guy and throws it to the other guy, and, like, this is just too easy. It's too easy. Defenses are too good, and so this situation right here is gonna force a collapse. This situation right here, which is Jakob Poeltl rolling to the basket, is going to force Nemanja Keita and presumably Sam Hauser to massively overreact. And if Grady is able to make this pass successfully, which obviously he's being dissuaded from doing so, but if he's able to throw this over the defense, then this is going to result in a wide open three for, you guessed it, Jonathan Mobo. Not good, but it doesn't change if that's Jamison Battle or anything, because teams are not going to give up 2 points at the rim to stay at home on Jamison Battle. They're just not going to. So, do the Raptors fuck themselves over in this situation by having Jonathan Mobo in the corner there and making this too predictable? Of course. And that's maybe a conversation that needs to be had with Darko Rajakovic. But I think in this situation, the point is made that having players who cannot be guarded by the bulk of the other team is a good thing. And then, of course, there is, as the screener, Jakob Poeltl is one of the best screeners in the NBA, bar none. Any player who replaces him in the starting lineup, be that CMB in the future, permanently, be that Goga Batadze, be that Day'Ron Sharpe, be that Domantas Sabonis, needs to have this element of what he brings to the team. Now, obviously, Day'Ron takes threes, so it's good. It's better. If Jakob Poeltl took threes, it'd be better. It would help more. It would make the offense less predictable. But just because he doesn't do this one thing doesn't mean that he doesn't do anything, right? The screening right here is what's going to unlock the RJ Barrett drive. This is how you tilt the floor, right? Now you can make this worse by having Ochai in the corner. The Raptors have a tendency to put their bad shooters in corners, be that Scotty, be that Ochai, be that RJ, be that Jonathan Mobo when he plays, be that AJ Lawson, who's having a 36% three-point shooting, but is not a threat to score from three. They like to put their bad shooters in the corner, which of course, is going to shrink the floor in the middle. But here, RJ is going to get the most wide open right now against Indiana because one, Indiana's not a great defense. And two, once he gets open, now there's a potential for a miscommunication, right? If you have a miscommunication here, there's a chance that two players overreact to RJ, which allows Grady to slip to the corner, which is presumably what should happen in this play, right? Because consider what's happening here. Grady is presumably cutting to occupy the right corner. RJ is coming around what is going to be an off-ball screen from Jakob Poeltl, and he is going to catch the ball and then quickly attack downhill. By the time RJ receives this basketball, Grady should be almost at the corner. At that point, RJ has one simple read. Has Jakob slipped or has Grady been lost? Both of those situations, by the way, present an absolutely brilliant opportunity to get 2 or 3 points for the Raptors offense. What does not help here is Ochai Agbaji sitting in that corner, allowing his man to potentially stop the Jakob Poeltl drive. That is what I'm talking about when I say Boston and Toronto's offenses are classes apart. And no, it's not because Boston's got this elite talent upgrade, because a lot of people picked the Boston Celtics and the Raptors to finish neck and neck in the Eastern Conference. It is because Boston's roster makes a lot more sense and the Raptors' offense does not. So let's take a look at some of these plays in actual action. Okay. Actual action. That's clunky. Here, Pascal Siakam, attack. Okay. A threat to get to the paint. Look at all the attention. Now, you can say Jakob Poeltl got a dunk. Cool. But what if Jakob Poeltl didn't get a dunk? Look at how open Dennis Schroeder is. This is why you have to get paint touches, and this is why the Raptors struggle. They struggle to get three-point shots, clean shots, because not because they don't have good three-point shooters. That's a part of the problem. They struggle to get good three-point shots because nobody commands a collapse in the paint. Once again, look at this play between Jakob Poeltl and Emmanuel Quickly. Here, Quickly is able to drop this pass to Jakob Poeltl. But again, here, what if Jakob Poeltl doesn't feel like finishing here? Look at how much attention has been drawn into the paint. Now, RJ being here doesn't help. So, in and of itself, RJ is at least part of the problem here. Scotty being in that corner doesn't help. So, Scotty's part of the problem. Siakam being here doesn't really help. I know a lot of people want to trade Jakob Poeltl. I'm telling you right now, I think his contract value or his value period has never been lower. You're probably better off praying if you have intel that he can be even remotely healthy. You're better off praying that he comes back healthy, and then you can rebuild his value in the tail end of this season and into the playoffs. Hopefully, he gets healthy, because anyone saying that Jakob Poeltl is not good for this offense or whatever, you don't know what you're looking at. You don't know what you're talking about. Anyone who's like, "Oh, you got to trade Jakob Poeltl at all costs." If the cost is having to move a first round pick to get off of him, I think that is a really bad cost. You might as well just buy him out at this point. You're giving up first round picks, which are very valuable right now, which are not highly valued by the league, but are very valuable to you because you don't have an abundance of good young talent to build with that actually fits the modern NBA. This idea of trading picks or multiple picks to get off of Jakob Poeltl, to me, is just it's insane. And if Bobby Webster has to do that, in my humble opinion, he should be fired on the spot. Okay. This is a good player. He is very overpaid, yes, but his contract value is very low right now, or his trade value is very low right now. Look at this ability to just beat Schengen off the dribble. Look at how much he is able to collapse the defense on that play. I'm not even going to let this play finish out. Just look at what happens to the floor right here. Scotty wide open, Gary wide open, right? Now, if Scotty is not Scotty and Scotty is Jamison Battle, this is a wide open dunk. I mean, it might be a wide open dunk anyways. We're not going to look at the entire play, but I'm trying to show you this is what Jakob Poeltl does. This is what a guy who is a really great paint finisher can do for you. And frankly, everything Jakob Poeltl has done in this in what I'm showing here, Day'Ron Sharpe, Goga Batadze, these guys can do as well. There's nothing significantly genius about what he's doing. He is a little bit more advanced and a little bit better as a screener than a lot of those guys. But honestly, Goga's an incredible screener too. So is Thomas. So is Day'Ron. Okay. So you don't need to get Miles Turner or Jay Huff. You don't need to get you don't need to take a gamble on Kristaps Porzingis. You don't need to get a 3-point shooting big to drastically improve your 3-point shooting. And that's what I'm trying to show here. Okay. Once again, off ball screening, right? Look at how open Grady is going to get here, largely because Jakob Poeltl gets him open. Now, once Grady has the overreaction, now we're able to pass to Jakob Poeltl in this situation, right? This is the play that I showed earlier, the screen grab of, and the corner pass would go to Jonathan Mobo. Now that's the problem. You can't play Jonathan Mobo in the corner. You got to play Jonathan Mobo at the dunker, where Chris Boucher is in this situation. Chris Boucher is probably going to have to be in the corner. But again, Chris Boucher is not a great 3-point shooter either in this situation. So here he was auditioning for his next team, but like he's not a great 3-point shooter either. What about this situation here where you get RJ 2 feet in the paint? You can see the defense is reacting to him because this is going to be a wide open dunk. There's no rim protector there. So here, Luke Cornett, they react. RJ Barrett, he is going to miss this shot because he is not Ja Morant in his prime. He's not Zion Williamson, so he's not able to, finish through that level of size and contact. But that was a perfect opportunity in that situation for Jakob Poeltl to get an offensive rebound, or on the offensive rebound to fling it out to one of the shooters. Look at how open the shooters were once RJ attacks off the dribble. Again, some people think maybe, Malik Monk and Domantas Sabonis wouldn't help. Malik Monk is better at doing this thing that RJ just did than RJ. And quite frankly, Domantas Sabonis is a really good offensive rebounder as well. So you see these situations play out over and over, and you're like, look at how open things get here, right? Jordan Walsh is going to have to overreact to Jakob Poeltl. The second he overreacts, that's a quick fling pass to Grady Dick. The fact that Grady has not materialized into a 40% three-point shooter, the fact that Ochai has not managed to be a league average three-point shooter, this is the reason that your three-point shooting is going to shit. A lot of people want to blame the guys who don't shoot. They want to blame CMB. They want to blame Scotty. They want to blame RJ. They want to blame Jakob Poeltl. These guys are performing relatively close to expectations. The fact that these other guys do not shoot, and I'm not trying to play the blame game here, but the fact that these other guys are not hitting their shots, the fact that Emmanuel quickly is not able to process the court well enough, the fact that Jakob Poeltl has not been healthy, in my opinion, is the cascading effect that why guys like RJ, Scotty are being less effective because they're actually being covered on these shots. Uh, here, look at like that final play. Take a look at how much Jakob Poeltl does to free everybody up. And that's Davion Mitchell. So that ain't it. We're already in a very, very bad situation. We got Davion Mitchell handling the basketball. Defense is reacting to him sufficiently. I don't know why. I would back off of him a lot. But here, oh, of course, it's Ben Mathurin. That's why. His ability to screen, rescreen, screen, rescreen, flip the screen, flip the angle, it's constant. Jakob Poeltl is the player who your eyes are designed to frankly not notice. You're far more likely, if you're a casual basketball observer, to notice the flashy impact of a DeAndre Ayton. But I promise you, Jakob Poeltl is a better player than DeAndre Ayton. Even though he doesn't hit mid-range turnarounds, even though his game may not be sexy smooth. So when you're thinking about replacing Jakob Poeltl and you're thinking about, the Raptors being 28th in three-point shooting, don't forget that the things that Jakob Poeltl does actually influence your three-point shooting so much that you go from the 30th team in the league to league average with him actually playing, which means that if he can do that for your three-point shooting, imagine what Domantas Sabonis, who is not a player that I'm advocating for, but again, I just want people to understand why you don't want to trade for Domantas. Like you and I can both agree that Domantas Sabonis is not a good idea. We have completely different reasons for why that is. And that's what's bothering me a little bit. When I listened to the Raptors space last night on the Twitter spaces, there's a lot of people who are just like, oh, we can't trade for this guy because this guy doesn't shoot threes, or this guy's not a high volume three-point shooter. We need a high volume three-point shooter. We need to go da 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 da. And it's just like, this is not the right idea. The Toronto Raptors have a major finishing problem. Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, neither of these guys are elite finishers in the paint. When they get 2 feet in the paint, there is a reaction, but it's not a mega reaction. It's not a heart attack reaction. When they get there, they don't have the ability to finish through contact over people. This type of player who can get 2 feet in the paint and finish through contact, I'm talking about Tyrese Maxey to some extent, like that type of player. I'm talking about Anthony Edwards. I'm talking about Donovan Mitchell. This type of bullet train downhill, this is what creates open three-point shots. Even a player that I'm not very much a fan of, but who has played great this year is Jaylen Brown. That's another example of a player who gets clean paint touches, forces collapses, finds openings. And it doesn't have to be this one-way street when it comes to three-point shooting. And I hope if you've watched this video through, even if it's getting a little bit repetitive right now, I hope you can understand why whatever you replace Jakob with cannot just be a guy who is Sandro Mamukelashvili advanced. Sandro is a good three-point shooter. You've added him. Jamison Battle is a good three-point shooter. You've added him. It's not like the Raptors are not aware of their three-point shooting problem. It's not like they think that Scotty Barnes doesn't need good three-point shooters around him. I think their issue right now is they have compromised on their vision by going half-half, which means they put guys like RJ Barrett, they put guys like Ochai Agbaji right now, AJ Lawson, Jonathan Mobo, CMB. They have all these guys who are not positive three-point shooters, and I think that it's just exacerbating the issue, which is basically that Emmanuel Quickley is not a great decision maker. Scotty Barnes doesn't get the ball enough, can't wiggle past his man and get to the rim, can't consistently get there. But there is a version of the Raptors offense that could work if Emmanuel Quickley and Scotty Barnes had the right three players around them. And I don't think any of those players are RJ Barrett, right? I think there's a world in which IQ, Scotty, and BI can work, but like the fourth and fifth guy have to be different than any players on your team currently. And maybe the fourth and fifth guys need to be Mamu and Yak. You know what I mean? Like if Mamu and Yak are your fourth and fifth guys, and then Scotty moves to the two, BI moves to the three, and IQ moves to the one, and you run a lot more of your initial actions with Mamu and BI screening, Scotty as the cutter instead of RJ, and then Yak and IQ in the two man, I think that could work. That could produce good offense. There are versions of this roster that can work. Unfortunately, due to politics, contracts, or blindness, Darko Rakovic has not unlocked proper rotations. And quite frankly, the Raptors are overachieving, so I think Darko has escaped most criticism. He is not innocent in what he's doing right now. And if someone's holding his hand to it and saying, listen, we need to keep these guys trade value up, so you have to keep playing them, that's a completely different story. I'm aware the NBA is a business. But at the end of the day, if he is the one choosing these rotations, if he is the one saying, no, I insist on Emmanuel quickly running this much pick and roll, I insist on playing Jonathan Mobo with Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett at the same time, well, then he is really, really ignoring the elephant in the room. Anyways, give this video a like. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a beautiful Saturday. In about 2 hours, AJ DeBonsa versus Darren Peterson is going to be really fun. I apologize yesterday, a couple of mistakes that I made. Number one, I forgot to read a super chat for the second stream in a row. I forgot to read a super chat. I also forgot to read a members chat. I apologize about that. And also, I misspoke a few times. One of the things that I misspoke on yesterday was that I said that the AJ DeBonsa Darren Peterson game was yesterday. I said that in my first live yesterday. That was incorrect. I also said at one point as I was listening back to it that that the All-Star bench, All-Star reserves will be announced next week. I believe they will be announced tomorrow. So all cool, man. All right. I'm going to talk to y'all later. And some comments. I refuse to believe Darko is that dumb. Darko's feet are almost certainly held to the fire to keep trade values up. I hope so. I really hope so. I think playing RJ hurts us more than rolling with Walter and Grady. Jacoby hasn't progressed nearly as much as I would like as a finisher, but yes, he is a better shooter and definitely more respected as a shooter, and he is considerably better defender. Last night, and I feel like I should probably show this right here. Give me one sec here. I'll pull this up. Do you guys have any guesses as to what the box plus minus situation looked like last night? You want to take a wild guess in terms of who was doing what? Take a look. So this is, oh, there we go. So this is last night's box plus minus sorted. Brandon Ingram, 6.6. Jacoby Walter, who got benched, 6.3. Scotty Barnes, positive 3.2. Sandro, positive 1.8. Colin Murray Boyles, 0.9. Grady, I could not have foreseen in a million years that he was negative 18.4. But honestly, like, I don't know how my eyes didn't catch his negative impact. Maybe I was distracted for a minute or something. I have no idea, but I couldn't believe it. The Raptors had their best offensive rating with Sandro and Jacoby on the court with Scotty. Okay. Unfortunately, Scotty's offensive rating to start this game, and I'm gonna be honest with you, in the first half, Scotty's offensive rating was like 150 plus. And it was ridiculous how much better the offense was with him pushing the pace. And a lot of this just comes down to Scotty, Sandro make a lot of sense. They make a lot of sense. Those lineups just keep working over and over because they make sense. Scotty, Sandro, Ingram makes sense, right? You add Colin Murray Boyles into it because you need some defensive help for Scotty because Scotty doesn't want to play the five. But honestly, like in a lot of ways, it complicates some issues, especially if CMB can't even dunk. That is going to create a cascading effect for this team. And they're going to have to pray that this is something that he is able to work on this offseason and not just something that's going to become a perma, disadvantage for him. Because if this guy cannot even complete successful dunks at the rim, if we can't even just get him to go up and dunk the basketball when he's wide open, he is going to have a very, 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 very long career as a backup defensive specialist. Okay. He cannot be on the court as a starter if he can't even just complete an open dunk. It's bad enough that he is the player occupying the dunker because he's not a great finisher inside, right? Like in an ideal world, you would have Scotty occupying the dunker. But instead, because you have CMB there, CMB occupies the dunker and Scotty has to sit in the corner. Like, this is not good. The Raptors' best case of offense is Scotty in the middle of the court, not Scotty standing in the corners. When Scotty sits in the corners, the Raptors lose basketball games. It's just factual. Go watch it, check it out. Uh, Zanoman said, need an offensive leap from Grady next season. Seeing Black Hoop yesterday was a hard watch. Yeah, for sure. Uh, Raptors need a real point guard to run their offense. Not having that disorganizes their offense. Same says James Walsh. I agree. I agree completely. And again, case in point, Trey Young versus Emmanuel Quickly. Like Trey is not a great basketball player by any means. At this point, he's not like one of the top 35, 40 best players. Emmanuel Quickly might be analytically better than Trey Young, but Trey Young does such a better job of organizing the offense. I mean, he's considerably worse defensively. He's higher paid. There's more drama, whatever. People really need to wake up to how poor Emmanuel Quickly is at organizing offense. It is truly disgusting to watch. Okay, talk to y'all later. Have a great one. Please like this video. And to those people who want to check out Pendants, passes are officially on sale, including VIP passes, all access passes. Definitely check it out. Talk to y'all later. Peace.